My Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 105.3 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. I'm Jenny Nicasio, along with my fantastic co-hosts, Sean Kelly and John Ventry. I just want to let you guys all know that you need to comment in YouTube for us to be able to see you. We're on multiple platforms now. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Roku. Oh gosh. All the different platforms across and SoundCloud. If you don't watch us live and video, you can listen to us on the radio on your drive home from work, on a walk, while you're having your coffee. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you share this live stream if you're listening. You have no idea how it helps us. And to keep us on the radio, we need your support. So make sure you share with your friends, talk about us, let us know how you like us. And if you have any ideas for upcoming shows, please comment and let us know, because you know what? We want to make you happy, and that's what's important. So we have so much to talk about tonight. We have a fantastic guest on the show, but I just want to touch base with a few things that's going on. Just a reminder, my trilogy From the Sky, all 3 books, From the Sky, Aurora's Curtain, and Equinox, and hopefully the prequel will be available before the end of the year, I hope, because I keep trying to push it out there. It's a great young adult sci-fi mystery love story, whatever you want to call it. But if you're into that kind of stuff, please check it out and make sure you do a review also. So, and also I just want to let you know that I have my own show that I'm just going to be co-hosting by myself.
Good.
co-hosting myself.
There's no co-host.
Well, I'll have my, you never know. You know, I have multiple personalities.
Well,
you never know. You never know who's going to be on. So,
yes.
It depends on what phase of the moon. Like, I think it's the waxing phase, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Pretty soon.
Wax on, wax off.
There you go.
Definitely. But it's going to be a different kind of show for the UPRN network. It's more like a variety. What's hot, what's not. All the latest news headlines. Some really controversial things. Because our first show. So I'm going to go out and say it's going to be dating in 2023 is for the first half. But the second half is, does pickle size really matter? So you can use your imagination when I say pickle.
Dating and pickle
size.
It doesn't matter to the pickle.
It depends on the pickle. And so
it matters to the jar.
Yeah. So that's going to be our first show. It's on February 15th. So if you guys can all follow me, I'd appreciate it. So I think it's going to be a little different. I think it's going to be lively. It's going to be spontaneous. It's going to be edgy. It's going to be me, because it's going to be it is in the know with Jenny. So, and my motto every show, like Sean always has his little motto, but mine is life is art. So live yours in color. So that's what my motto is going to be for every ending of the show. But I'm excited about it because it's what I wanted to do in the beginning. Before the paranormal, it was my son. He's the one that convinced me to do paranormal. I love paranormal, but I want to do more things. And I thought we'll just keep this show paranormal. And, with everything we know beyond the scope of normals on this show. And so the other show is going to be what's on the news, a little controversy stuff. I want
At
to talk.
least you get the vent. You can vent.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, it's sort of like Wendy Bell without all the,
I told you one day
politics.
you were going to get there.
No, it's not.
Did I not?
Well, no, it's
Did
not
I
going to be.
not tell you you
It's
were
not
going to be
going to be.
the
No,
you're going to
it's
be
not.
the next Wendy Bell?
Well, no, it's not going to be that kind of. It's not going to be
the
like
bells.
without the bells. Yeah, it's going to be. I'm not going to go. You know how I am. Like, I would like to talk about how women are so lately are so. I don't know what's wrong with them. I wanted to talk about before we bring our guest in, Christina George. I just want to talk about like what's in the headlines, and I just want to show you that real quick because I know I have it up here for us. I hope I can. That's another thing. I would like to hire if somebody is in school and wants a little gig, make a couple extra bucks, and you want to help me be my co-pilot over here for my show or this show, they can help, run everything. Like I would like to have 2 cameras. I would like to have video. I would like to have more whistles and bells and musical sound bites, but I can't do it all myself. So it's kind of hard because, even with my multiple personalities, it's just too hard to do. So, but I would like to talk about this. And can you see that, guys? Tell me if I got it on the screen.
That looks like Madonna.
I am offended. I am offended as a woman, as a Christian, as a Catholic. I'm offended by this. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I don't know what's wrong with society that we think this is okay. It's not okay. It's offending me. And it probably offends the man on the cross too. And I don't care what religion you are. If this was somebody else's religion, you'd be offended too. If this was somebody else.
If you remember the Super Bowl from, I think it was 2012.
She was in that. Yes,
she
was
did
in
an
that.
act that was on the cross, and she's done this before. This is
her thing. I'm
to
sorry.
Make money.
What is she? How old is she? We're about the same age?
No, she's like 66, 67.
Okay. Nobody wants to see you on stage when you do stuff like that. And I'm sorry, as a woman, I am offended. No, if there's anybody else out there who's offended,
I might
get some hate mail.
You got to realize, like a lot of Hollywood people, she has sold her soul to the devil for money and fame. There's no doubt in my mind. And I listened to an interview 20 years ago. The other girls that came out the same time as she did on MTV, they all said she was not the most talented. She wasn't. A lot of the other girls were better singers than her. And who knows what she did with Harry Weinstein,
I don't know what she did with Harry,
but she ended up being the one, and she was never the best singer,
Yeah. And it's nice to I'm going to be honest with people probably think, I have a lot of people in my community to think, what the hell are you doing paranormal? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with being paranormal, being a Christian, because honey, I believe there are spirits.
Whoa.
I believe there are a lot of things out there, UFOs. And in fact, we've had this discussion many times before. I think, Christ and aliens, what do you want to call it? Fallen angels, demons, angels out there, they all are linked together into the supernatural and the paranormal. But before we go on, I just want to bring on Christine because I don't want her to say, hey.
And I got one thing I got to tell you, though.
What?
Ready? Your friend, Val Thor.
Oh,
your
God.
favorite.
Please, he's not my friend.
Listen, I am hosting. I'm the MC and host. They're doing in New Jersey at High Bridge. You know the picture of him, the Val Thor and the girl and the guy sitting? They're doing an event there to honor Howard Menga. That was the owner of the farm. They're doing the Howard Menga story. And I'm the MC, the host, and I'll present. And there's about 5-6 different people presenting. So that's going to be, I can't remember, July, I think, is when they're doing it in High Bridge, New Jersey, where that event took place, whatever it was, 50 years ago. So I'll get you the inside scoop on Val Thor.
Oh, I would like to hear about Val.
Apparently, there's a lot more evidence on it than I thought, because they've been sending me their emails and a lot more pictures and different stuff. So I think it's one of those one-time things,
Well, how did you get that gig?
I know the people running it, and they come to the Philly UFO conference, and they know how I run it. And, I'm a pretty good public speaker and very knowledgeable. And they said, would you help us run this and be the MC and speak? And I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Wow. That's great. Well, I love to
Yeah.
hear about Valthor. I mean, I have nightmares about him, but
I'd like to hear about Christine.
oh, I will. Christina
Let's
George is
go.
a psychic medium who's been investigating everything paranormal for the past 15 years in the public eye and has had paranormal experiences for over 50 years in total. That's a lot of years, Christina. Christina's experienced spirits in the paranormal activity since childhood and has had not one but two, oh my god, two near death experiences. Wow, that's crazy. I think one would be enough for me. I don't know, man. That's crazy. That she says changed the way that she not only looked at life, but also death. I bet it would. And her role in the paranormal is wow. That would change your whole role in the paranormal if you had an experience like that. So I can't wait to hear about that. She started her own paranormal group to help residential clients, and for over 10 years, she's also mentored children and teens with psychic abilities. Wow, that's so awesome. I didn't even know there was. I can't wait to talk. There's children that actually go around and think they have, wow, abilities. And she's helped their parents better understand what they've experienced and how to control it. And she's also spoken at many conferences and about the importance of state safety and protection, as well as she's been featured in many books describing just some of the most terrifying investigations she's experienced during her time in the field. Over 10 years ago, she also started a radio show called Paranormal Connections that she still hosts today. Well, I want to bring her on without further ado. So let me go ahead and bring Christina into the live stream. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate this.
Thank you for being on. This is an honor.
Yes, it is.
I've been waiting so long to get a chance to just to listen to you and get to talking to different things with you.
And she's going to be on video as soon as she's in a different location, but that's good. Look, Christina, I mean, it's weird that I actually found you. I searched.
So strange. Yeah.
Yeah. That we were discussing that last night. I was weird. I was looking for someone. I wanted to have someone good on the show, and we've been having a lot of difficulty. And I don't know if it's because my website hasn't been up, but thankfully I found you. And it turns out that you have a connection with UPRN 2 on FM 105.3 and 107.5, I believe it is. So
absolutely.
Tell me, let's start from the beginning. How did you, get into this field, and what led you to where you are today?
Well, I will tell you, I did not choose this path. It was something I was born with. I could see spirits as young as about 4 years old that I can remember. Started there. I will tell you, I never had any fear as a child of anything, any of the spirits, but I also didn't encounter anything other than just human spirits that were in a few of the houses that we lived in that, they would come to me, talk to me, tell me things, but it was I knew that nobody else was seeing them. But as a child, you try to explain. Adults don't, especially back then. I'm 55, so back then, parents didn't really understand. This wasn't something that was discussed. I was also came from a very, very, very strict Catholic background. And so
I can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely something that wasn't, talked about. And kind of started there, when I started trying to tell like my mom, my grandma, different things, or they'd ask me who I was talking to. It was always just kind of poo-pooed off saying, oh, she's got an imaginary friend. Or if I said I saw something, they'd say, oh, there's nothing there. It's just an imaginary friend. And, as a child, it's very confusing. People are telling you it's not happening. It's not real, but it's very real in your life. So you really don't know what to do. So it was kind of an awkward child, I would say. I mean, I'm a very social person, but I kind of had to live two separate lives growing up, especially once I got into school. Just because again, that wasn't a topic that you could really talk about. And probably it took me until I got to about middle school. And, I really wanted friends. I wanted to fit in. And every time that I would get close to somebody and we'd be really good friends, and then I would decide to let them know what I was experiencing, it either scared the heck out of them, or they would go home and mention it to their parents. And at that point, they were no longer allowed to talk to me, have anything to do with me. So again, as a child, it was very, very concerning and confusing just to try to figure out what exactly was really going on with me. So it kind of, starts there I didn't know. I knew nothing about quote unquote paranormal or psychic abilities. The only thing I knew about a psychic back in those times was like Miss Cleo and Dionne Warwick, and they had like the psychic hotlines. So I knew I wasn't that.
Oh, I remember that. That was
I remember them. Oh my God.
Right. So
Yes.
I had no idea what I was experiencing, what was going on. So I really didn't have a lot of friends until about high school. Now, mind you, growing up, my mom worked. I grew up in Napa Valley, and my mom was a bartender. And the main cemetery was right across the street from her job. So I literally pretty much every day after school, I would walk down to the cemetery, hang out there, then, go get in the car, hang out until it was time for my mom to get off and go home. And so I was just kind of a loner, and although I knew a lot of people, I didn't have friends that wanted to like hang out or invite me to go anywhere or do anything. So I happened to be hanging out at the cemetery. I used to meditate out there a lot. I mean, a lot of people were like freaked out by the cemeteries. I found like that was my like peaceful place. I could go there and let everything else go away. Although I got a lot of interaction sometimes. But yeah, it was very interesting. I used to love to go there. And one time I met this group of kids there, a couple girls and a couple guys, and they were all goth kids. And so they were kind of, saw me sitting out there by myself in the graveyard, and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing out here? Why would you be out? Do you have family here?" And I said, "Oh, no, I just kind of like to hang out here." And so we got into more of a talking, and I was kind of interested in why they were there as well. Same thing. So eventually I ended up, telling them a little bit about my paranormal experiences and that I could see spirits and things like that. And instead of it freaking them out, it completely was opposite. They were like so intrigued and just like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And so now like I'm instantly thinking, "Hey man, I finally found a group that I can fit in." They weren't scared away. Like they seemed to be cool people. Everything was good. By the next weekend, I got an invite by one of the girls to come and do a sleepover. So again, I'm in high school. It's the first time I've ever been invited to a sleepover. So I'm super stoked. I get there, bring my little bag in, walk in, and I follow the girl into, it was like a room that had been built onto the garage. And I walk in there, and the first thing I see is a table, just like a little square table, and they had candles, and they had a Ouija board.
Oh, geez. Ouija board.
Now, yeah, but mind you, I'm young, and during those times, like pretty much every one of my friends' parents had a Ouija board in their board game closet. So it was nothing. Right. So it was like nothing that scared me. I mean, I never used one only because I could interact with spirits without needing one. So it was like, why? And I just never was interested. But again, I had no fear because I'd been around plenty of them and people used them all the time. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to do the Ouija board. And this is how we're going to see if you really, really can see and interact with spirits. So I'm a little confused because I don't know what a Ouija board has to do with finding out if I'm telling the truth or not about if I can see
Yeah.
spirits. But I'm like, okay, I'm down. So they're like, all right, we're going to ask questions and then we want you to answer what the board is going to answer.
Hmm.
I'm like, well, I'd never done anything like that before, so I didn't really know how that was going to work. But I'm like, sure, okay, whatever. So they start doing the Ouija board, blah blah blah. They're asking just some like basic questions, and then all of a sudden they start asking questions, and I just pretty much said, okay, anybody that's coming through, can you please let me know the answers? And so they were asking the questions, I would give an answer, and before you know, the planchette would be moving around, and it would spell out exactly what I had said. So the first time they all kind of looked at each other, and they're like, all right, whoever's guiding this, knock it off. And everybody's like, no, no, it's not me, it's not me. So we do a little bit more. The questions got a little bit different, and the answers were a little darker. And at one point, there was one of the kids asked like a very personal question about them and their family. And I answered, and obviously the answer was correct. And the girl like completely freaked out. Like she was like, tell me that you're moving this, tell me that you're moving this. And everybody's like, we're not moving it. And literally, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. She grabbed the board. She's like, this is too much. And before I knew it, she's going to the backyard and in a big metal trash can, she threw it in there and burnt it.
That's not good.
Well, we know that being in the field now, but at 16, I had no idea of how to open one, close one, use one, or any of the above. So I'm just thinking, oh, okay. And
But you could still answer her questions without the Ouija board. So
100%.
yeah. So did you do that and continue, or did they?
No,
No.
They asked me to leave. They did
Oh,
not
They
want me.
asked you to
Oh, man.
leave. Oh,
well,
wow.
Yes.
that's probably good because they would
That's
have thrown you
mean.
in the bin and burnt you like a witch, just like the
Yeah,
board. Just like the board.
yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience for sure. And so, yeah, I was literally probably only there maybe an hour and a half altogether. So I'm calling my mom. I need a ride back home, not spending the night after all, and went home. But I will
Yes.
tell you from that point forward, um, I started going through a very, very, I want to say, deep depression out of nowhere.
Oh, wow.
I
That's a spirit.
also, yeah, definitely I got an attachment from being there and with this Ouija board. It was something very dark for sure, and it was definitely affecting me. And eventually, it started showing itself to me, and it was just this person in a big black robe with the hood, so you couldn't see a face. Uh, and I started over time, like, again, not only am I a psychic, but I'm also a very strong empath. And so, and a sensitive. So, being around a lot of people, like, especially if it was negative, like, I would just suck that energy up and it would become mine. So, again, now knowing this all in hindsight, I had no idea at the time what was going on. All I knew is that I was very depressed. I eventually started cutting, and
Oh,
it was the one thing that gave me some relief because once I would cut it, I would be able to release all that energy.
Cutting yourself.
And go ahead. What'd you say?
I said cutting yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I would cut in my inner thighs, on my wrists and arms. And whenever I would be doing that, this hooded guy, this robed guy would show up. And eventually I started having like very suicidal thoughts, and to the point that I would be cutting myself, and this figure would show up, and he would say, just push a little bit harder, and it can
Oh,
all be over. You can come be with us. We'll take care of you. We'll
those
protect
evil
you.
demonic creatures.
Yeah. And, part of me, because of in the depressed state I was, I felt like, maybe that was the right thing to do. But again, remember, I grew up Catholic, and that's probably one of the cardinal sins would be to take your own life. So,
Yeah, civilly.
yeah, so I was very on, the fence. And so at one point, he just kept coming back and really more forcefully, really trying to convince me to take my own life. And at one point, I like it set me over the edge, and I started screaming at this thing. And I said, if you were so powerful, if you could protect me, if you could do all of this, why can't you take, my life? Why do I have to do it? Like, if you're so powerful, and why do you hide behind that hood? Why don't you ever show me your face?
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget to my dying breath, this thing turned around and said, "Oh, you want to see what I look like?" And me, little rebel self I am, I was like, "Yeah." And he puts his head down, and he puts his hands up to go like where the hood is to like start to pull it back, and I can see that it's long, bony fingers and like these longer nails. And then he pushes the hood off, and as it drops back, I look up, and I will tell you, he looks exactly like something right out of a movie of Satan himself.
That's frightening, scary. I wouldn't want to see that.
Yes.
It, to be honest, was petrifying
And that,
because
It scared the hell out of me.
well, it all
well,
stems
the
from the
only
fact of the Ouija board that you use at that house. It'll come from that.
yes. And so, you know, first thing is I've never per se feared death ever. But what I, did fear was like going to hell. And, I guess grow up being Catholic and going to church every Sunday, it's like your fear is that, Satan's going to come and get you. And so now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's true. And here he is. But then I started like thinking about it, and I'm thinking, he can't. I mean, again, if this was true, if he was truly Satan, he wouldn't need me to push harder and take my own life. Like, he could snatch it from me if he wanted to.
That was probably
So
not Satan. It was probably just another creepy ass demon that wanted to torture you.
exactly. And what it is like, now being in the field all these years, what I, realized is that thing, especially anything really dark,
Mm-hmm.
they know you better than yourself sometimes. And they know
Yes,
every
true.
single fear that you have. And so he had to go for, the top one, because not too much scares me, to be absolutely honest, even to today. When I go on investigations and people get freaked out and you'll see them running and screaming, and no, like if somebody screams and runs from somewhere, that's exactly where I need to be. I need to go right there. I need to go see
Yeah.
what's going on. So it, although it tried to take me out, I realized, okay, you can try to manipulate the situation and manipulate me to do things, but I really think you're full of it. You can't hurt me, because if you could, you would have already hurt me. So it kind of lost some power, but it still like, had a lot to do like with emotionally how I felt. And I have literally had that thing. Oh, I was 16 years old. I have seen so many people in the field. I have had healers work on me. I've had demonologists try to remove this attachment from me. I've had all kinds of people work, and it is still with me to this day. It usually only shows up when I am at my lowest, if like something just very traumatic happens. But it seems like that's the only power or kind of strength that it has, is that my weakest times. Otherwise, I guess it just can't really affect me like it normally would. So, yeah, that was my first real experience with, a Ouija board. To this day, I speak a
Um,
lot on Ouija boards, and not wanting to use them. I will 100% agree. They are a tool. They're a tool just like anything else that you could use, and you could have the same thing happen with any tool that you use. But it's also very important to understand the tools that you're using, how to use them properly, how to
yep.
protect yourself, so
I have a question for you, Christine, real quick.
sure.
So you say that this the guy still hangs around you. Um, don't you have like good spirit guides, good angels that can just easily boot him away, or are you trying, or not trying? I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Are you just keeping him there just because you want him there? Do you know where I'm coming with this question?
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely don't want it here. Obviously have went to great lengths over the years and tried all kinds of different things to get rid of it. My angels and my spirit guides that protect me, um, it just doesn't seem like anything can get rid of this. So I'm not really sure if it truly stemmed from the Ouija board, or if it was something that has always been with me. Because again, normally these kinds of things, especially attachments, are, although they're hard, I know so many people in the field that are very, very successful in dealing with things like this, and so far nobody's been able to help. But my story again is very, very deep and very complex, and um I believe that it's all kind of tied in, and it's more of, you know just part of my journey, and it's going to be there. And as long as it's not affecting me and it's not hurting me, I am completely okay. And it just seems like over the years, I've got much stronger than it has, as far as allowing anything to affect me. Plus, I learned, how to meditate, how to ground, how to protect myself, which is all helped over the years for sure. Which again is why I literally got into mentoring children and teens with psychic abilities, because I was there. I know how scary it can be. I know how confusing it can be, so, and I know how dangerous it also can be. Especially, I see a lot of teams now that are taking their kids, or, allowing children to be parts of investigations and different things. So, it's like, if this is where the field's going, then, people need to be
yeah.
more
With with
knowledgeable.
with my group, I mean, if some, I only allowed 16 years old and above, but if they were 16 up to 18, I'd have their parents with them. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's not cool, because you don't know. But I do have to come back and ask this, because, and I'm not being rude, and I'm sure a big follower of yours, but I had a problem with Chip Coffey one time when he had
Hmm.
that one show
Hmm.
where he put these kids on television,
Right.
teaching them how. And what really got me mad, and I have calmed down a little bit. I just ignore it. But what bothered me the most was putting the kids on TV and showing them how to be a psychic and all this stuff. And what bothered me the most was that, what are they going to do when their friends see them on TV? You know what I mean? To me, I think they would be ridiculed or made fun of. I would think that it would make life a little bit harder for them growing up. I just
One
wanted to say that.
No, and I agree 100%. I felt like, although this is a topic, and I think that it's an important topic, because, again, although it's kind of a double-edged sword, that show did educate a lot of parents that, when children are bringing up paranormal issues and experiences, that there could be something, to it, and not to just poo-poo it
Right.
away.
And I
But
agree
it
with that
also,
100%. I do.
right. But then on the other side, you're right. Now there are faces out there. People, might recognize them from TV, see them, whatever. And then now they're ridiculed because I know, again, just through the few times, that I would share with somebody I got close to, like what I experienced. And again, it was either the kid was freaked out or the parents completely, said, do not
Mhm.
go around her ever again. So I just feel like it's kind of unnecessarily putting, them out there to have to deal with that on top of everything else.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad you're teaching the children because and the parents are the biggie.
Yes.
Because when I would go to a client's house and they were, was involving children, I'm like, you know what? If that kid starts talking about that dude over in the corner, listen to him and let him talk.
Yes.
Don't tell him not like it's not there, you're false and it's not right. I said, no, you can't do that. You have to sit down and actually talk with the kid and just let him share his story because it makes them feel not so much wanted, I think, but part of their family structure. Did I say that right?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a different time and age than it was, before, like when I was, first getting, into the field. We didn't have a whole lot of all of the television shows and all the education and stuff like that. So it's a little, different now. For the parents, I mean, it's key that they understand. But you also didn't see a whole lot of kids talking about paranormal stuff going on. Now, you would get a lot of kids that would say there was a monster in the closet or under the bed, or they could see red eyes or things like that. And again, for many children, if you just tell them enough times that it's imagine it's not real, you're all right, eventually you're going to block those abilities out. But
Right.
there are other kids that, like myself, that there is no blocking it out. So you just kind of have to try to navigate it. And how do you navigate it if you don't know what's going on? So, and then the parents, I can help the kids. It's great. But if the parents don't understand and they're not on board and, there to support, it's kind of all for nothing. But I am seeing that parents are much more interested, much more involved in getting their, kids and their teens and stuff, help with this kind of stuff. So it's been, a very long journey, but I have helped a lot of kids. And to be absolutely honest, what I do is I will mentor them one on one, and then usually once a month we would have a group setting, like a video call, and I would introduce these children that are in around the same ages and stuff like that from all over the country, and they were able then to not only know me, who had a similar experience to them and understood them, but now they had a group of their own peers that were just like them. So that although they can't, be open and have friends to be on board and talk about this stuff at school, there was now a place that they could, and they could share experiences, and they could, you know, support each other. And, so it turned out to be something much bigger than I thought it was. And, I'm really happy about that, to be absolutely honest. That's my biggest accomplishment, I think, in the field.
How many
Spirit
children
bless
do
you.
you have? How many children do you have in your little discussion group? What
So
you said?
I've always kept, they're in different age groups. So I have not been mentoring for like the last 5 years, just because I have some major health issues. And so I had to back away from it. But I would do groups of 10, and they would be in different age groups. So each age group. And I've probably mentored, I think the last time that we did a count, it was like 116 kids,
That's
ranging
Wow.
impressive. That's a
from
very
7
impressive.
up to 17. So
Do you contribute any of your health problems to the fact that you deal with the paranormal, or do you think sometimes that there might be some kind of negative energy that's affecting your health?
Yeah, the paranormal for sure has affected it over the years. I just have never stopped. I live with a terminal autoimmune illness that's very rare, and there's no cure for it.
Oh,
So,
wow. It's
um,
it's a what kind of autoimmune is it? Like, because I have the reason why I ask, I have three, and
okay,
sometimes I think that it comes out. My flare ups come out when I do certain topics that we discuss on the air
yes,
or go to different
yes.
places.
Yep. Absolutely. So the illness that I have is called systemic scleroderma, seen sclerosis, and I have it with GI involvement. So it's a connective tissue disorder. With the most common type, you have it externally. So it basically your skin thickens and it disfigures you over time.
In your
I
fingers.
have Correct, yeah. I have a rare version, and so it affects me internally. So this
Mhm,
connective tissue grows like ivy, let's say.
mm.
And so it grows, and when it attaches to any organ internally, it sections onto it, wraps around it until it no longer functions.
God
Yeah.
So
bless.
yeah, so
Wow.
I've had probably 30 surgeries over the years, like for
Wow.
everything. You would go in and try to remove all of this connective tissue and scar tissue, and it would grow back, 100 times faster. So it
Yeah,
would,
what you have is very like I have a connective tissue disease plus rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's,
mm,
Hashimoto's. I got them all. Plus,
gotcha.
thankfully, yeah, you know how it is. But yours is mine isn't like terminal. It'll
Yeah. Well,
just you
you
just
know
have
what?
to.
I don't put, the doctors. So I've been diagnosed now for about 15 years, and the doctors told me, well, originally told me that I had less than 5 years to live.
Oh
And
wow.
then, so like, I freaked out, like, my kids were still young, like, I was making a will and trying to make sure I had all my ducks in order and who was going to like help with my children, like, just everything. And then 5 years came and left. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Is it
okay.
this? Did you get a positive ANA? Like they thought I had lupus. They still don't know. It's
Yeah,
your.
I've had positive, and I also this mimics lupus as well, so it's in the very similar class. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've had all the testing, but my thing is I have always believed I live every day as if it is going to be my last, because there is no guarantee that what will take me is my illness. It could be I could walk out, I could get electrocuted, who knows.
Yeah.
I
Everything.
believe,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe
Everybody
everybody
should
has a
live
birth
like
date
that.
and
Mhm.
you have a death date.
Yep.
Yeah.
And nothing changes that. If it is your time to go,
It's
you
your
are
time to
going to go.
go.
That's right. And I learned that after having, my near death experience. Well, I had two of
How
them, but
okay, how did let's talk about that. How did that
sure.
happen? And
Okay,
let's talk about the first one.
sure. So the first one happened when I was about 8 years old. So we were very poor at the time, and my mom put us in the Salvation Army. Uh, I don't even want to say it was the church, but it was like a camp or whatever. And so they would take us like on field trips and stuff for the kids. So they took us out to Stinson Beach here in California. Now, I don't know if you guys know about Stinson Beach, but it is the one beach most known for shark attacks. It's shark infested, let's put it that way.
Oh well.
So I don't know if the church like was trying to get rid of us or what. I don't know why they would take us there, but that's where our field trip was. So they were up on the lit or up on the hill in the parking lot, getting all the stuff to take down, and all of us kids we ran down to the beach. We get and I'm standing out there, and we're in the water. I love the water. I'm in the water and everything, and all of a sudden I'm hearing these adults up at the van yelling and screaming. And so I look up and they're waving their hands up in the air and everything. Well, silly me, I thought they're waving to me. So I'm waving back, and I can't hear what they're saying. And before you know it, this big, gigantic wave came right over the top of me. The
Oh,
undertow sucked me in
I hate that when that
and
happens.
pulled me under, and literally I was in a dryer. Like I was
Oh
just
God.
flipping and round and round, and I could not get up no matter how much I was fighting. The more I was fighting, the more scared I was. So it was all bad. And then next thing I know, I just went limp, and all of a sudden I saw this gigantic, like, bright light in the water, underneath the
Oh
water. I could still
wow,
see all
that's
the
scary.
bubbles and everything, and this bright light like just comes and was completely around me, like I was in the middle of this light, and whatever it was told me to relax, everything was going to be okay. And at that point, I just relaxed. And the next thing I know, adults were pulling me out of the water, I guess, doing, chest compressions and everything on me to try to bring me back, which I came back. Now, again, that I didn't tell anybody at the time about that, because churches and my experiences were not a good, you know, collaboration at any point in my life. So I just kind of was quiet about that, never said anything. But then when I got to be an adult, I had my second one, and more profound. I had a car accident. And to mind you, I had been sick and having issues for many years prior to that. They say, "Oh, it's all in your head. There's nothing wrong with you." And I'm like, if one more person tells me what I experience is in my head, like I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
going to do. So I'm like, okay. Eventually, you convince me that I'm hallucinating or I'm a hypochondriac. I don't know, but okay, it's nothing. And so I get in a car accident, and I ruptured my spleen. And
Oh
so they had to
man.
go in and do surgery to repair my spleen or remove it, whatever. I think thought they were going to have to remove it. They ended up just being able to repair it. But when they opened me up, here they see all this cocoon of all of my internal organs.
Mm.
And so they go in there. So they're working on me for like 8 hours. And all of a sudden, I'm above my body in the operating room, overlooking the gurney, seeing the doctors, seeing everything. Like I literally had to kind of
No. Yeah.
manipulate my way over to see if it was me. And sure as heck it was me. Now, mind you, I'm an adult now at this point, right? So I do know about the paranormal. I do know about near-death experiences. Like I got very interested in all that off of TV and started researching. So the first thing I'm like, oh my gosh, am I dead? And the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, I know that when you're in the hospital, because so many people have near-death experiences during surgery,
Mhm.
they normally will put something like on top of the big operating room light, so that you'd be something that would stick out. So I'm looking, but there's nothing there. So I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at like the all of the machinery, all the
Mhm.
readings, I'm listening to what they're saying, all of that. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen. And then the next thing I know, I'm not in that room anymore. I am now just in a room. It's just all bright light. There is no ceiling, no floor. It was just there. And I can see that there is my grandfather, who was the
Mhm.
very first person close to me who passed away and came back and to see me right afterwards. Um, an ex-boyfriend of mine who was murdered in front of me.
Oh
I see
geez.
I see a couple of other women who I have no idea. I have no idea at the time who they are. Later on, I find out through my father that it was family that had passed on before that I never met. And then the other people I still to this day have no idea who was. So I'm looking, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm trying to get, my grandfather and everybody to come to me. And all of a sudden this male voice comes and says, that it's not my time, and I need to go back. And not only do I need to go back, but when I go back, I need to be open about my abilities, and I need to help other people. And I'm like, oh, no. First of all, if you got me here, I ain't going nowhere. Now, and that's very crazy for me to even say, because mind you, at the time, like I have 4 children. And so my children were young, and, I provided everything for them. So I wanted, the last thing I would ever do is want to leave my children behind without a mother. But where I was at, and in the headspace that I was at in this place, I was at complete peace. And it was okay. Like whatever was going to happen was going to happen, but I did not want to go back. I wanted to stay there. And this voice keeps saying, no, you got to go back. And I'm like, I'm not going back, and you can't make me. How about that? And at that point, I was literally yanked backwards with such force that it literally like pulled me back. And I can still see everybody, but they're further. And I'm literally yelling to my grandfather and my ex-boyfriend, like, help me. Like, I don't want to go back. Like, help me. And next thing I know, I'm yanked back a second time. And I'm still, 2 times. And then the third time, I'm yanked backwards. And now I'm back above my body in the operating room. And I can see that I have flatlined, and they are shocking me. So at that point, they still don't have a pulse. And I see the doctor tell them to turn it up, and that they were going to try one more time. If I didn't come back at that point, they would call it. So I'm literally just kind of watching this all in disbelief. And they take it, and when they put paddles down on my chest that last time, next thing I know, I was back in my body, and I'm waking up from anesthesia. And I'm literally so panicked of what I just experienced that I'm literally telling everybody that will listen, the nurses, the anesthesiologist, everybody. And I remember this one nurse, she just came over to me, and she just started rubbing my forehead and my hair, and she just kept saying, honey, calm down. It's okay. Nothing's wrong. Nothing happened. You're fine. It's all a dream. It was a dream. You're fine. And I'm like, no, it's not. So I didn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't even know what to do. Now I still have to figure out how I'm going to process all of this. So I'm in the ICU.
Well, she's kind of blowing it off, saying it's a dream. I would have been really,
But again, a repeat of my, the story of my life. Anytime that I've tried to say something about something that's going on in the experience in my life, I've been told it's not true. It's not real. They kept trying to tell me it was just the anesthesia. It's just the anesthesia making you think that it's okay. You're all right. I'm like, no, I'm not. So the next day, a doctor, because I was at a university hospital, and this doctor came in, and he was like, oh, hey, I heard that like you had a really interesting experience, when you woke up from your surgery. Now I'm thinking right away, like, he's probably a psychiatrist or something. Like they sent them to, commit me. And so I'm just like, oh no. I just had a lot of anesthesia, I guess. And he was like, well, no, I heard a little bit of a different story. So then he explains to me that he's actually some kind of a professor or something at the university, and they're actually doing research on near-death experiences. So that's why he's interested. So now I'm like, okay, I've never heard of him. Why would they, be doing that here? But okay, so I tell him, but I said, but you know what? It probably was the anesthesia, because I actually have seen lots of documentaries on near-death experiences of people when they're in the hospitals, and they say that they mark the lights up above, so that you'd be able to see a marker. And I said, and when I looked, there was nothing.
Oh.
And he writes something down, and he gets this big smile on his face. And he said, okay. And he said, well, your experience, I believe, was very real. And he said, and I said, well, then why wasn't there something up there? I said, do you guys put him here in your hospital? And he says, yeah, we do actually. And I said, well, then why? Obviously, I didn't see it. Why wouldn't I see it? And he's like, because out of the 3 ORs that we have them in 2 of them and not in 1. And that was the one that didn't have it.
Oh.
So I was
Ooh.
like, oh, okay. But again, that made me realize that if it is not your time. Now, how many times have we seen on the news or something that you see a car accident, right? And the
Mhm.
car is completely torn in half, right? And you
Yeah.
say, how could nobody could survive that? And the person gets out of it with not a scratch, right? Somehow, or without bad injuries. It wasn't their time.
Yeah.
But when it's your time, it's your time.
It's just, yeah,
So
it's true. Whenever it's your turn.
yeah, so I don't focus on that. I live each day as it's my last. I have days, and I'll tell you, my followers, my listeners used to get so angry with me in the beginning of being in the field because they would say, "Oh, I spent a lot of time in and out of the hospital. So I'll be in the hospital for 3 days, and then I'll get out. I'll be out for a few days, and then there'll be like a conference or like my friends are getting together, so we're gonna go out and have some drinks, and then I'll post about that, and they're like, "You just got out of the hospital," and then I'll go do an investigation, and then 3 days later I'm back in the hospital, and they're like, "Why would you go out? You shouldn't be investigating." No. And over the years, they learned about me because when I don't feel good and I have to be in the hospital, I'm completely put out of commission. I have to submit. But if I feel good, 100%, you're going to see me out there. I'm going to be investigating. If I want to go and live it up and go and have a party, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to do whatever it is that I want to do while I can do it until I can't do it anymore. So if that means intermittently, that's what I'm going to be doing. So.
That is sweet.
John,
Thank you for
John, you're
sharing that.
John, you're so quiet.
Yeah,
I
John, what's wrong? Come
can't
on, John.
I can't get any questions in.
Hey,
I got
John.
two.
John, welcome to my world, buddy.
I got two questions. One, did you ever try going the more
Mute your
traditional?
background, hun. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to go more traditional route of getting a priest and, try to drive that entity away, even if an exorcism or something is needed? Have you ever gone to like the pastor or the Catholic Church?
I have gone to the Catholic Church actually multiple times over the years. I don't know how much you know about the Catholic Church, but
Did they
to
help
try to
you
get
or no?
absolutely not.
Yeah,
No,
I
100% not. They will not entertain it whatsoever.
Nope.
Yeah, it took me. I had something in this house, and I kept going to my church, and it took 6, 8 months for them to just come, and they would only do a blessing. They wouldn't try
Right.
to drive it out of the house. That's more paperwork to get to that stage. And
Yeah.
it was actually 15, maybe 3.5 years later that, and it was in the middle of filming a movie that they brought a real priest in, and he said, "I'll do this for you," and he drove it out. But that thing was in his house for 5 years. But the other thing I want to ask you is what the hooded guy, when he pushed back and showed you his face, do you think he showed you what you expected to see because he knew that's what would scare you the most? Because they can shapeshift. He could have looked like Daffy Duck, he could have made himself
Oh
look
yeah.
like anything.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think that um he showed me them that way because that's what I was expecting to see. But I think that he did that because he knew like that was one of my top fears. So, again, these things know us well.
Yeah.
And so again, at our weakest points, that's when they're kind of able to get at us and do something that will trigger something.
Do you think to some extent, like with the metaphysical, that your mind is actually controlling all of this? That if that you in a subconscious way, maybe you want it to be there, and it's a tulpa, I guess, that you are actually creating this thing, and it is really there, but your energy is bringing this hooded guy in there.
Well, I mean, I've actually seen people, create poltergeists in their homes, and it
Yeah.
absolutely can happen. Again, I feel like this has been with me for a very, very long time, way before I knew anything about any of this stuff, or to even be able to manifest something like that. Again, this started very, very young.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had experiences at 4 years old, at like 12 years old, at 16 years old. So, it seemed like something else was always there.
Yeah, yeah.
Carnation.
I'm getting there. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait.
Relax now.
I'm
Relax.
getting there.
I'm glad you're 30 miles away from me. She would have bit my
I'm getting
head
there.
off. Hi, Chaylee. Good to see you. And I want to welcome every one of Christine's peeps that are here watching our
Yeah,
show.
definitely.
It is a pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you.
And
for
we love to
joining.
get your comments in. So if you have any, I think there is one there. But
Oh wow, there's a lot of people in there. I mean,
there's one that says, "How do you
comments.
feel about victims of abuse?"
As far
That's what someone's asking. How do you feel about victims of abuse? I'm
Do you
not
think
sure.
he's implying that they bring these things in like a
Yeah, maybe.
negativity?
yeah, maybe if they can, whoever put that, if you could just elaborate a little bit on exactly what.
Yeah, while they are elaborating, I am going to mention our wonderful. Let me just get this.
Oh, look at this.
It's backwards though.
It's like a mirror. It's a mirror.
Yeah, it's a mirror. It doesn't. I don't know how to get it. I don't know how to bring it to.
Well, we see the word.
You see the words. It's backwards. Oh, but
That's okay.
that's right. So I'm going to do a rock. Okay. I just want to stop 1 second and say a shout out to our wonderful sponsors at Carnation. Make sure you get your essentials or get your Carnation evaporated milk to make your wonderful pies. And then we have a holiday coming up, so Valentine's Day. Make sure you get some Carnation Instant evaporated milk, or get some essentials breakfasts and bars or drinks, fortified protein and multivitamins. I want to thank you again, Carnation, for sponsoring the second hour of Chasing Prophecy on the FM 105.3 UPRN network. And make sure you check us out on Roku. Roku, whatever. They know what I'm talking about. I'll get that off.
Christina, I had when this stuff was peaking back in 2015, 2016, I remember going over to Buffalo Wild Wings. I go there to watch the UFC fights. And I had a table. I get there early, and it's just me and 4 chairs, right? And this kid comes over and he says, "Can I sit with you? Because you can't get seated." I said, "Yeah, go ahead." But we start talking, and he recognized me because I'd been on TV and stuff. But he starts telling me his story of these 2 entities in the house, like you, the hooded guys. One was big, the other was smaller. And he said that the smaller one would kind of be pushing the big one back, get away, leave him alone. But the way it worked out was the smaller one was actually the attachment and was trying to be like good cop, bad cop. And, I started talking to him about, calling upon Jesus to drive it out, and there are things you can do. And I tell you what, the kid, he said, "But he's my friend and he's there." And I talked to him. It was as though he wanted the attention. And then he just abruptly said, I told him, "You got to do something about this." He abruptly looked at me and said, "Oh, my friends are here over there. I'll see you. I'm going over to the bar." He didn't want to talk about it. So he got up and he walked away,
Wow.
So it makes it's weird though. I'm known in the UFO field, but I've had these paranormal things, and I've had so many people tell me their paranormal experiences, and the stuff is real.
Well,
Have you yourself ever called upon Jesus to drive it away? And I mean, you could say a whole lot of rituals yourself without the priest, because I've had people say to me, "You don't need the priest. It's what you believe.
it's
You
the
can
belief.
do it."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I no longer follow the Catholic Church, but I am fully, Christian. And yes, I believe that that is the one way that I, would be able to get rid of this. The last person who actually reached out to me to help me through some other people I knew was Bill Bean. And, over time, I've really been thinking about it. And I guess I just feel like, okay, I mean, I'm just going to keep trying until something works, or else the other side is I just come to grips and just keep living with it like I have been all these years. And, again, the only time is when I'm really, really sick. And it usually affects me like when I'm in the hospital, or if I'm like super stressed out. Like I had my father pass away, then my best friend was murdered. Then my mom passed away, who I was taking care of, and I found her. And then my best friend went into the hospital, and 2 weeks later passed away of cancer. And I was like under so much stress. I didn't have time to grieve not one person, much less, everybody. And so, I noticed like if I'm really stressed out, or if when I go to conferences, I really kind of stepped away from doing conferences anymore either, just because there's just so many people and it just literally sucks me dry. And I'm one of these people, like, I don't just say, oh, hey, how are you? I'm like a hugger. I got to touch you. I got to hug you. And I'm immediately going to know what kind of person you are. But it is not good sometimes.
Do you think this entity had anything to do with those deaths, with your friends being murdered in front of you, or maybe even causing those other people to die prematurely?
It's an interesting thought. I've never thought about it, but no, I mean, I can't really see any correlation from one to the other. Each death was something very independent of the others, and some of it was natural causes. My friend that was murdered, this was like the third time that the person who murdered him had tried, so he was just successful this time. So no, I will tell you though that it has been said for generations in my family that the curse, this curse that we have. And I didn't actually know where I got my psychic abilities from. I didn't find out until I was an adult and I already had kids and stuff. I happened to be going to Oregon, and you pass this area called I can't even think of it. Well, there's this
Trail.
Yeah, there's this little small town in there, right? And we were driving. I'm like, oh, I'd love to stop there so that I could take a look and see a cemetery, because it was like an old town. So we went there and we drove up there, and my dad, they had always said, that our family was from up there, and I didn't grow up with my father, so I didn't meet up with him until I was already 18. So we never really had any discussions about my abilities or my experiences, anything like that. We just, daughter, father, time and talking. And so I go to this cemetery, and it was like I had been there before. And so I had someone with me, and we started walking around, and literally as I start getting to this one area, I start seeing all of our family, headstones. But I'm seeing that all of them are the women they all have the Freemason insignias on there. And then when I get to back into the older part of the cemetery, and yeah, it's just filled with our family. So I called my dad up, and I was like, hey, Dad, I'm here, I'm at the cemetery. He's like, why are you there? And I'm like, oh, I was on my way to Oregon, and I thought I would stop by and see what was up. And he was like, oh, guess it's time for us to have this talk. And I'm thinking, what talk? Like, I'm grown now. Like the birds and the bees time is way past, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and he said, well, these abilities you have, they come from my side. And so then
Oh.
he started, explaining, and also we were generations and generations of Freemasons, very, very high ranking Freemasons at that.
Oh, hi.
And so it stopped with my dad, and then my uncle right um, below him didn't sign up. They would not be part of it. But they said that the stories over time was that, in order, the rituals that they would do in order to be able to have, the money and the power and the prestige, would be to like sell the souls of the grandchildren, or to
Oh my
curse
goodness.
the other, people. So again, yeah, do I believe in a lot of that? I mean, when they've always said in my family that, we've got this curse. And I will tell you that if there was no such thing as bad luck, I would have no luck at all. Anybody who knows me, they say that I have final destination luck.
Hmm.
And anybody who's seen that movie, Final
Yeah.
Destination,
Yeah.
the craziest things, those are the kinds of things that happen to me. Not just regular bad luck. It's like something right out of a movie. And the crazy part is that when I tell people stories like this, like you especially when they're with me, I can see for a while they're like really intrigued, and then all of a sudden they're kind of like, starting to lose it, like maybe she's adding a little extra, that couldn't be happen, until they start hanging around me, and then
Yep.
they see the craziness that goes on in my life, and they're like, wow, you really are serious about this. I'm like, yeah. So who knows? I mean, again, it could be something that's passed down, generational. I don't know. i you
Don't you
know i
think
really
don't you think you can make your own luck too? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's
you
what I'm saying.
think a little positive, like this vibes are going away.
But
Yeah.
here's something that I look at life, and why do bad things happen to good people? And you can't really explain that. Really good people, bad things happen, right? I've always believed that it's the sins of the parents are passed down to the third and fourth generation. That
Yeah.
what happens to you is not a lot of times not what you're doing. I mean, to me, I believe that the bloodline, the DNA is very powerful. And if your grandfather, your father did something and got away with it, you don't get away with it. It's passed on to the
Oh,
kids, the grandkids, and you get bad luck out of it.
I do think that
You
we
end up
pay
paying
for
for
the
it.
sins of the father too. I
Yeah.
don't care. I mean,
It's like it has to equal out, yin and yang. It has to equal out.
I do,
Christina,
but I go ahead.
I just had a question. I see you had a lot of death in your life and family. Have you had any experiences that you want to share? I know I had an experience with my mom on January 7th. Have you had any experiences?
With family or with
Yeah, like a paranormal experience.
no, I would say the only experience I've ever had that was connected with family was my grandfather. He was the very first person around me who had passed away as a child, and I was very, very connected to him. And we were rebuilding the deck in the backyard. I was helping him, and he I ended up was going to come back the next day. He was out there working. He ended up having a heart attack. My grandma had to call the ambulance. They took him, and he died at the hospital before I could ever get there. And so when they called to let me know, my mom had called, I literally went straight to my grandparents' house. And while everybody was in the, living room and the kitchen, kind of going over doing the adult things, I went into my grandfather's room, and I went and laid in his bed, and I fell asleep. And then the next thing I know, I opened my eyes wide awake. I literally saw my grandfather standing right next to the bed with his hand out, and my hand, like, just on its own started rising up to like grab his hand. And as soon as I reached it, it was super, super cold. It like kind of like, I don't know if it startled me. And at that point it broke, and he just like his silhouette dissipated, and I've never, until my near-death experience, I had never seen him again. And it's very hard because I connect with other people's loved ones, and I do readings, free readings for people a lot over the years. And I'm able to bring, messages and comfort to people, but I've never been able to do
No.
that for myself.
Mhm.
Or I've actually had a lot of people try to do readings on me.
Mhm.
But
can't.
it's very either apparent one of two things. Either it is just so generalized that it's like, I wish I wouldn't have wasted my time, because it's like, okay, I see like a grandmother figure. So do you have anybody that's died? Well, I'm 55. Of course, I've got people who have died before me in my family, and it's like, oh, did she have red hair? No. Okay. Maybe it was like an auburn. No. Was it maybe like a strawberry blonde? So
Oh, that's
Here's what I say to psychic readers: if they come out and ask a question first, you know what I mean. If the reader
right.
comes out and says a question right away, I would just like donate my money to them, get up and leave, because you
Yes.
can really build on a question. Really,
100%.
I
And
mean,
then
I
and then I'm somebody that I like to mess with them, because once I see that you're trying to mess with me and you're just fishing for information,
yeah.
now I'm just going to put some random information out there. Now you're going to tell me a whole story that we both know is BS. So, and I'm just one of those people that, I might call you out right there. You might be the next topic of my radio show the next week. So,
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
I
here's
don't ever ask a question if you're going to,
never.
when you hear that reader go up and you sit down and she asks you a question, just donate your money and get
Yeah,
out.
I find those, like, especially the ones that are online. I mean, they
Yeah.
can go check out your profile and they can see your whole family history by looking at the pictures. So I'm a little leery about doing anything like that online. I don't know if I trust them. I mean, some of
And
them,
now people can Google you. Like, I mean,
yeah.
it's not going to be, probably not everything is accurate, I know for a fact, but I mean, people, yeah, go to your Facebook page. Like,
Yeah.
there's things I
Yeah.
always, when I do a reading, whatever spirit I'm, interacting with, I always, ask them to please give me information that only the person I'm doing the reading for and that person would know, so again, there's no, I'm not going to ask you a bunch of questions. Like, I'm just the messenger. I'm just giving you the
Right.
information, and it's either going to make sense or it's not. And that's how it is. So, if you start, again, when people start asking all these, questions, and especially if they're asking the questions and they're not even close. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like I
Right.
have, let's see, I have a M. There's a
right.
Yeah.
M. I mean,
But
there could be
can I
Mary,
share a
Marie.
story? I would like to share a story. I was doing readings with a group of 8 people, all up and down 79 in Pennsylvania. And this is the God's truth. We're down there in Washington, PA, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this one lady just kept looking at me, right? And I'm thinking, something's fishy going on here. Long story short, she came to my table before she sat down. This is a true story, everybody. Before she sat down, I looked at her and I said, "You better take your ring out of your purse, put it on your finger, because you have a habit of losing things. And if you lose that wedding ring, which I think you're going to get, then your husband's going to be awful mad." She put her purse down, put her ring on, she was trying to trick me, and she put her ring back on her hand, and then she gave me the money and left. I was just like, it was funny. What may I ask? What deck you read from, or do you read from a deck?
I do not. I
You do
I
not.
have
Awesome.
no idea
Cool.
how to do tarot.
Okay. No, no,
No,
no.
that's why I said it's very raw. So it's whatever those messages are. And, again, I'm very respectful in my reading, very respectful of the spirit, to give me the information that, is going to help that loved one, through this reading. And so we get some amazing information. And I think that reading like that is even better. Again, there's so many different ways to do readings, but for me, that's the way. And I just don't like to ask a bunch of questions because, again, then I start to think about my experience. So
Do you have any messages right now coming in, like you could share with anybody?
I don't, and I will just tell you, I literally, uh, probably less than a week and a half ago had surgery and a blood transfusion,
Oh
and
boy.
so anytime that I have that, I do not open myself to any type of communication, just for that. Because one thing that for me, and which is one of the reasons I used to do free readings, and so people used to, oh my god, sometimes I was doing 30 40 readings a day,
Oh.
and it just began to drain the heck out of me,
How do you
and
keep
people.
like does things just pop in your head like you see on television, like Medium or Ghost Whisper, or do you have to actually channel the stuff?
No, I mean, I usually can. It depends. Usually, I can visually see who I'm communicating with, and so I can describe somebody. I can, certain clothing, like different things like that. But I can communicate one on one with them, so they'll give me
I mean, if you're
information.
sitting at home watching television, you get a thought in your head like, I'm
Oh,
really
all
worried
the time.
about the president, or I have a feeling that something's going to happen, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you have no
No,
control
it's
over that, Jenny. You
yeah,
don't.
right,
That's what I'm
right.
saying. Do you have these things happen?
But you get those
Or do
feelings
you have
about
to
kids
meditate
too.
on it? Because there's some that they have to go into a trance.
Yeah, I don't go into a trance, and I don't really. I do right before a reading. I do kind of meditate just to kind of open myself up and clear everything out, so that I'm only getting those messages in. But I will tell you, messages come random all over the place. I
Okay.
mean, when who is it, the Long Island medium,
Mhm. I don't know if I
she's
believe
become
it.
she's become very commercialized. But I will tell you, when I first saw her show, I was like, wow. When she was like at a grocery store and all of a sudden just had like a message for somebody, I'm like, oh wow, like that's exactly how it is for me. Like I can be walking, all of a sudden it's like, yep, you have to. I've even been like threatened by a 5-year-old that if I did not give a message to the mother, who I knew did not believe in psychics whatsoever, that if I didn't, she was going to come home and she would stay with me until I gave her mother this message. So, yeah, it can happen anytime,
Okay, I have a
anywhere.
question. So I don't want you to take this the wrong way or anything like that. I'm just asking because I
Of
heard it
course.
on Marshall Taylor. I don't know if anybody listens to him. He says when he interviewed an exorcist priest who performs exorcisms, and he said, "So how do you know that these thoughts that you're getting, these messages, are not coming from something other than spirit?" Like I think John touched
Right.
upon this earlier. How do you know it's not something that's not like,
A trick, a deception.
oh yeah,
Right.
deception or some kind of
Good question.
demonic entity that's saying, "Oh, why don't you tell that lady over there that her mother has a message for her?"
Oh
Like,
yeah.
how do you know it's coming from spirit and not a fallen angel?
To be
How
out,
do
that's a
you
great question. But for me, I I don't know. Like
you don't
the
know?
messages come, and again,
Yeah.
I visually can see what the person looks like. But again, there are entities out there that can shape shift and
Mhm,
and
yeah.
Yep.
show you in any form that they want. So if they wanted to show in a human form, I mean, again, I guess it would kind of maybe depend on the information or the messages that you're getting.
Or or it could be the feeling that you get when you're like when I do that. And I'm not trying to take over the show, but whenever that happens, it's just that I know who's there watching me, who's my spirit guide, my angels. They're there. So whatever comes out, I just say, you know what I mean?
Well, that's
Yeah,
getting back
that's
to you say, and like again, I'm not trying to be, negative or anything. I'm just, I'm saying
no,
things
of
that
course.
somebody else would want to, probably want to say too. Like even with Sean, like how do you know your angel is really your angel? How do you know it's not somebody else
I've worked with
that
them for
pretends
over a
to
long time.
deceive you? Because I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, how do you know for sure? You don't know for sure. That's why I think it's a very fine line of where you need to be cautious. And like I said, I've never heard you do a reading. Maybe I should, Christina. Like I see the comments in here, everybody's, saying that, she's the real deal. But I'm not denying that. I'm
No,
just saying,
absolutely.
how do you know, like the, the, the feeling or the channeling or the entity is who they say they are? Is there something you can do or to know for sure that it's coming from spirit and not somebody else? Is there a way that you can, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell you. I mean, even all these years experiencing that, there I still have plenty of questions, and I still learn all the time. But I know that, like, for my guides and things like that, they have a very specific, like, energy imprint.
Mhm.
So you recognize that energy, so you know that that's who you're dealing with. Now, as far as the spirits, like, I mean, again, that could be very true. Like, something could try to deceive you. The ones that I've connected with and I've given, messages when I'm doing readings, uh, everything seems to mesh for them, and make sense to them. So I would assume if somebody was trying to trick them or something like that, that maybe a lot of the information wouldn't make any sense. Um,
But here's an observation I got is when we started, you were saying about the entity and you were cutting yourself, and he would say, cut a little deeper, cut a little deeper, come with us. Now, think about this. You're able to see him, right? Now,
yes,
that happens to everybody, in one way or another, but they can't see that thing. So
right.
that's those messages like, the little devil on your shoulder that's telling the person, yeah, inject that needle. You need that heroin. Place that last bet at the casino. Double,
Yeah.
double the amount of, I'm telling you, this stuff happens. And for the person who, isn't like you, it's happening to them all the time. That's the people,
Yes,
all of these vices and compulsions, that's where a lot of this comes from. But they don't realize that they don't have that awareness about them, and that's scary for the average person who's listening to this. It's telling you,
absolutely.
listen to the show, listen to the show, listen to the show.
Oh God. Oh
But that's
Lord
what
have
Yeah,
happens.
mercy.
That's what happens.
yeah. 100%. And I mean, again, that makes me think. I mean, I have seen things that are very dark, or that are not a human spirit. So I mean, being able to visually see things the way they are. But again, I couldn't tell you if I've encountered or dealt with an entity that has shape shifted to take the appearance of something else. I usually just see whatever that true form is. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure.
I have a question for you, Christine.
Okay.
A long time ago, when I was really learning the paranormal, the spiritual, all kinds of, this whole thing, a friend of mine said that with all the negative energy that you have created, and it just goes out to the universe, she claims that it's possible that that black blob or black person is all the negative energy that you released all a long time. And since it's your energy, it's staying with you. What do you think of that?
I mean, again, it definitely could be possible, but just the fact that it was with me so young before I had a lot of this stuff going on. But I mean, again, definitely plausible. Do I think that's what's happening with me? To
Yeah.
be honest, I'm really not sure.
Like your health. I know, once I went on an investigation, Sean was doing a class at Penn Trafford High School where I live, and he was doing a class, and we went to the Bushy Run battlefield. It's where I live. It's a battlefield, and it was at night, and I was there. They had the cameras, they had all their equipment, the paranormal equipment, and something squeezed my shoulder and said, leave. Okay, and I freaked out and I left. Okay, I ran as fast as I could. Almost got killed. Almost went through a major highway and get smashed. But I went home and people took pictures. It was weird. Like they took a picture of me. It happens to be that next day, and there's this huge orb, like right in the center of my chest, and I was got that H1N1 so sick. I was so sick the next day. I was deathly ill. And I still to this day think that presence hooked itself to me and I took it home with me. And it affected my health. And that was from that moment on until now. I've like had nothing death, nothing life threatening, but all these autoimmune disease your body attacks itself. And I still think it's from that moment when that thing attached to me. What it was, I don't know. Who it was, I don't know. But I'm a little leery. Like Sean always wants me to go on investigations with him, and I'm a little leery about going because I know from past experiences what it does to me if something attaches to me. It makes me sick.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little leery.
You have to be careful. I mean, again, I'm just kind of one of those rebels that it's like whatever. I'm going to do it regardless,
You don't
So
care.
I really don't. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I tell everybody if I could, if my last breath is investigating or taking a shot of tequila, then
I'd rather
and if
take
it
a tequila. Sorry.
could,
Well, let me
maybe
ask
one before
you.
the other. Who knows?
Maybe your family, your children, how do they feel about this? About your,
So it was something that, again, when my children were young, I did not talk to them about anything.
Okay.
They were very kind of freaked out when they knew what I was doing. So we just didn't really talk about it. And it was kind of weird because when they were in school, like they'd always say, "Hey, mom, my friend's coming over today. So do me a favor. Don't be
Don't
talking
talk
about like
about
your
it.
paranormal. Don't be talking about you got a
Yeah.
client. Like, please do not embarrass me like that." And I'm like,
Yeah.
got you.
See, that was
Okay,
the
we won't talk.
opposite with me. My kids, they wanted me to do readings for them. It's like, okay, let's go out on the porch. Aunt Jenny's going to do some readings.
Yeah, well, that's the flip of it. So yeah, so for when they were all in school, yeah, it was like very embarrassing. Don't bring anything up. And again, I didn't want to traumatize my children, so like, yes, okay, that's fine. But as soon as they graduated, oh, now they want to come and they want to tell me all their experiences,
Yeah.
everything that was happening. Oh, now all they tell all the friends every time that they get a new friend. Oh, yeah, my mom, she's a paranormal investigator. Yeah, she's a psychic. Yeah, you need a reading. Yeah, you do a reading. Oh, you had
Yeah.
somebody who died. Yeah, she'll take care of you. And I'm just looking at my kids like, really? Where'd this come from?
Uh-huh.
That's amazing stuff. It's fun. Yeah, there's it's just a different, I don't know. And it seems like it runs in the family. Like if I have a little bit of intuitive nature and I'm a
You have a
sensitive.
lot. You have a lot. Get it right.
And my son, my one son, he does cards and stuff, and he's real intuitive, and he talks to a spirit guide all the time, which I find fascinating. I said, well, how come I can't talk to my spirit guide? Like, do you have any tips for anybody on how to connect with their spirit guide?
So there are plenty of ways. Let me just start out with the preface that, okay, in my opinion, everybody has psychic abilities. Everybody. Okay, so when people are like, no, I've never had anything, and I'll say, oh, have you ever like walked into a room and maybe met somebody and you've never met them before, but you just know right away that that's not a good person? And they're like,
Yes.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, so what do you call that? Oh, a gut feeling. Okay, well, you call it gut feeling. I call it some psychic abilities. All right. So we'll go through things. Most people that I have found is that usually by the time children go into school, if they are actively experiencing things and talk about it and it's shut down, then by the time they go to school, they get a block up and
Yeah.
done deal.
That happened to my son.
Oh,
Up to
okay.
the eight, up to the age of before, up to the age of 10, he loved psychic abilities. He loved talking to ghosts and spirits and that. But when he turned 10 years old, it all stopped.
Yeah.
and
Well, and
it just
usually
all
they have
stopped.
some. Usually they'll have some kind of experience, which is a different experience than the original. So, like again, for me, when I was young, everything was very positive. I didn't have any like anything negative to compare it
Yeah.
to. So by the time that I did have something negative, then you're like, oh heck no, I don't want these abilities.
No,
And
it's scary.
yeah, yeah. But again, a lot of people block it. A lot of people now as adults all of a sudden are unlocking, the abilities are coming through and they're like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to
Mhm.
do." So my bet, I tell people it's our human nature to fear what we don't understand.
Right.
Exactly.
So the
Yep.
best thing that you can do is get the knowledge. If they, find it out, do the research, do what you have to do, you know, because even for people with abilities, once they're reactivated like that, it's very hard to shut them back down. It's not like being a kid, where you've got a lot more power to put up that wall. Once you're adult and they reactivate, like you're pretty much going to be dealing with it. So at that point, you need to learn to be able to manage it and control them. And
Mhm.
so my biggest thing is meditation. You know,
Yes.
meditation will be your best
Mm.
friend. You know, and I get a lot of people too that are like, "Oh, I'm Christian or I'm Catholic, we don't meditate, and
Oh, I
That's
thought the
funny.
Catholics meditated all the time,
Oh
but it's
my
not the same
God.
kind.
yeah, right, exactly, right. And so I'm saying, well, the thing is like when you're saying your prayers, right? You're asking for things. Well, when you're meditating, you're just letting open and receiving, what comes through. And they're like, oh, well, that's much different. So,
Mhm.
and I'm like, and they're like, well, yeah, I can't sit cross-legged, for 2 hours, doing hymn chants and stuff. No, no, that's not what you have to do either. I'm like, I can send you
No.
an 8-minute meditation and do it, every day before you go to bed.
Yep.
And they're like,
Mm.
really? So, yeah, I mean, there's very simple things, but again, most people don't know. And again, a lot of people still to this day are afraid of these
Well,
different things.
yeah, it's scary. Like, I know myself, I don't know if it's the same thing, like the shadow people, the figures that you see at night, you can't move, sort of like
Hmm.
sleep paralysis. And I
Yep.
always wondered, we've had a show on this a number of times. We probably should do another show on it because it was really good.
Now I get
Uh,
mad at him.
Brian Sharp, yeah.
I get mad at him, Jen.
Because he's a psychologist. Brian Sharp was on this show a couple times, and we discussed the sleep demons. Like I call them sleep demons because you'd fall asleep, and it seems like it happens like maybe a few moments after you fall asleep, where you can't move, you can't open your
Hmm.
eyes. Or you can open your eyes, but you can't move, you can't
Yep.
talk, and you're like, You're trying to say mine was always, Mom, help
Yeah.
me.
No, you're right, Jen.
But I
Yeah.
would get it like, oh my God, my whole like adolescence, and into adulthood that I would scream. And I probably scared the hell out of my kids. I don't know how many times I'd scream, I help. And then you can't move and you can see the figure in front of you. And it's like, it looks like it's sort of like one of them alien gray demons, it's like one time the one pulled my sheets, my covers down. I'm like, oh my God, and I can't move. And there was a show called Evil. I don't know if any of out there have seen these. That
That's
oh my
creepy. That
God,
was creepy.
Evil is the best, scariest series on. I mean, because it talks about this creature like a demon that sits above your, and it torments you. So it's
Hmm.
like I started having them, but then I started having where I would have my premonitions about the same time. And I would have like telepathic things, or I'd think of somebody and the phone would ring, or I'd see a dead relative. It's like it's all started from that moment on. I'm like, what are they connected like the sleep demons? But for a child, we talked about this a number of times. I think wouldn't a child be terrified
Right.
if this happened to them, and then they started hearing voices, and then they think, oh God, like Lynn, you've heard of the creepy shadow people. Yeah, the Hat Man. They're scary. And so many young children, it seems like it's like pre-adolescence, like puberty that they start. I don't know if it's something to do with hormones, but
A
you
lot
know,
of young kids though, they don't know that this is good or bad.
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, I see somebody over there. He's not eating me, so he wants to play.
yet he's not
Yeah,
eating you yet.
I mean, he wants to play. He wants to talk. Okay, you know.
Yeah, it
But
really kind of just it depends. Like I experienced, well, I have for a very, very long time sleep paralysis as well.
so you
But
had
I
that
also,
too.
oh yeah, well, and I also I have a lot of the precog dreams, um, premonitions,
Well, yeah.
and
Mhm.
so like usually when I wake up from those, I usually have the sleep paralysis. But um, that's why I said I think my fascination in the paranormal is just more so than just the paranormal because um I've also over time believed that I've also been a contactee, so which is kind of linked to my precog dreams
Oh yeah,
and
they can
and
be
all
linked
of that.
together.
So yeah, so I've always say there's a lot in the paranormal that links between the fields. It's always kind
Yep.
of been crazy to me that the fields are so separate. The people in the paranormal don't believe in ufology, and the people in ufology don't believe in the paranormal,
That's
and neither one
horrible.
of them believe in Bigfoot or the Loch Ness monster. So it's like, and everybody's an expert, and everybody knows everything, and nobody knows a thing, to be absolutely honest. So it's like we're all just trying to figure it out. So, but I do believe, and doing research over the years and having so many clients and stuff, you start to see the similarities in different aspects. Like if they're having paranormal experiences, yeah, they might be having sleep paralysis. And yeah, oh, and why are the shadow figures looking like little grays?
Yeah.
And oh,
Why do
why
they
are they
look like little
having
grays?
right,
Definitely.
so again, it's very different, but I feel like it's, very, very connected all, together, which is why I've always covered all the topics.
Christina, what's your views on the afterlife? What do you think happens when somebody passes, and when does it happen? And what is your views overall?
But again, this is something where, I'm very interested to know. I mean, I interact with spirits, and some of them, have will tell me that they've crossed over. They're in a very beautiful place, very tranquil, peaceful. I have other people that have maybe died tragically or suddenly, or maybe even took their own life. And they're kind of, and I don't want to say even purgatory, but it's just in kind of a middle ground. Um, but I've never been able to like experience or interview somebody maybe who has memories of past lives or things like that, or reincarnation. So I feel like some people cross over, and again,
Do you think there's a real heaven and
I
hell where
don't I
you're
don't
judged? Okay. You,
I
you know, you
don't.
know,
I think I'm torn because I mean, again, of my upbringing, but I mean, I don't. I've never had a reading with somebody who says, "Oh, I'm in hell and I'm burning up," and I've never had somebody say, "Oh, I'm in heaven." I mean, they will say, "Oh, I'm at peace. It's very beautiful. I'm very,
well,
happy."
maybe the people you can only contact are the ones that are still here wandering, because the heaven and hell people, they're not here anymore. They've
You
moved
know
on.
what?
So you
Here's
got the
my
middle
theory.
earth people, the middle earth.
Here's
Yeah,
What's
my
your
theory.
theory?
We're living in hell right now.
I agree with
And
you.
Right.
when I
I
die,
agree with
I'm
you.
going to a nicer place.
Yeah.
That's the
I
way
was
I
gonna
look at
say
it.
anything can be better.
But Sean, this is the way I look at it: is God is good, and God's not throwing us in a lake of fire to burn, for a million years. But he that is said that it will happen, and this is where people get confused with hell. That will only happen to the Antichrist, the false prophet, and the devil himself. Those are the only three people that get thrown in a lake of fire. Nobody else, nowhere else did it say humans were being thrown into a lake of fire. The thing that Jesus actually said was that when you die, it's over. It ends. It ends until that final judgment. But
Yeah,
don't, but then I can't reconcile that with what you're saying, Christina, because there are things still here. So maybe this is hell, and this is where people are until that final judgment. Because otherwise, who are we contacting? we
Right.
got we're contacting somebody, and the
Yeah.
old Catholic
Hey,
view.
John, I want to see where it says that Jesus says this is it. This is the end. I
We'll
think you're
talk
speaking
about
of
this
the
next
Old
week.
Testament.
Well, I'm reading the book right now, and I'm not done yet. I'll have it done by next week, and we'll talk about it. But it talks about that the whole punishment and reward thing came really from the Greeks and Homer. Jesus didn't say anything about that, not for humans, But and his view was
Well, didn't he say
it
whoever
ended.
believes in me shall have everlasting life?
okay, this is
That
for another show.
that
This is
we'll
for
talk about
another
it
show.
next
We
week.
got Christine here.
That comes at the judgment
I'm
point,
I'm
not
more worried about
at death.
dying being eaten by a shark, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah,
But
I wouldn't want to be eaten by a
I'm
shark, though. That would.
curious what people who have this ability think happens at the moment of death. Do you go somewhere for 2 days, like Hades, Sheol, and you wait
Well,
for your
watch Days of
judgment?
Our Life because Marlena, Kate,
Days of our life.
and Kayla are all going to hell.
Oh my God.
It's interesting.
It
Yeah,
is
I will
interesting.
say, in the paranormal, I mean, I've been in the field for a very long time and have experiences for a very long time. There has been, good and bad and everything. It's definitely been a learning experience. I got in, when it wasn't popular, when nobody knew anything about it, before really like probably right when the TV show started, coming out maybe. But, you know, every single thing that I've learned, my thing is I've turned to a positive. Anything bad, I've had a lot of really scary investigations. I'm not gonna lie. Um,
Give
but
us one before you leave.
And I got
all
another
right, I
question. Yeah.
let's talk about the Union Brewery. That's the most recent one that I did. So there is a bar. It's called the Union Brewery, and it's in Virginia City, Nevada. For
I was just
anybody that
there. I was just there a couple months ago.
Okay, okay. So anybody knows about Virginia City, the whole town is haunted. It's got the Washoe Club,
That's where I
the
was. Yeah.
hmm the Mackey
Seagrave.
Mansion.
Yeah,
It,
Jason.
it is the whole town. Like you can't go anywhere in that town. Well, it's literally one street, but anywhere you go in that town, any building, it's going to be haunted. So anyway, I was invited up there. Now, my grandfather was also a clamper, so I always knew about Virginia City, always knew that it was like haunted, but I had never been up there. So one of my friends out here, she was like, hey, we're going to go up and we're going to go investigate. Would you like to go to Virginia City? And I'm like, hi, yes, let's go. So she's like, yeah, one of my friends, she's going to be there. She owns a bar up there. It's her birth. It was my birthday that following week. She's like, it's her birthday too, so we're like going to go up celebrate St. Patrick's Day, your guys' birthdays, and would if you want, you can go the one of the days. We were like for 4 days. She was one of the days you can go and do a walkthrough of her bar and let her know if you pick up on anything. So I was like, sure, yeah, I can do that. Didn't ask anything else, just move forward. I mean, people ask me to do that stuff all the time. So her and her friend get to the house and it's probably like 2 in the morning and we were supposed to leave at 5. So they wanted to like get a couple hours sleep. So they fall asleep. We get up, we go up there. And mind you, as we going up there, this horrible storm hits. And so like I thought we were not going to make it. So we get up there and by the time we get there, my nerves are frazzled. So first thing that we all decided to do is we're going to go have some drinks. So I start having tequila, shot, shot, shot. Then we go to the bar and we have a couple more shots. And then in the middle of the night, some other people from the town that are investigators that came by and they were like, oh yeah, you're here. Do you think we could go over into the bar and go down into the basement? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so she says, hey, Christina, do you want to go over and like go up to my apartment with me and see what see, now, first of all, sober Christina knows better than to go and try to do a reading or anything when under the influence of any kind of alcohol, right? But drunk Christina got asked. And drunk Christina said, oh, yes, that sounds like an amazing idea. Let's go. I don't need protection. I don't need nothing. I don't need to do anything. We're just going to absolutely, I'm on with you. So we go across the street. So we go through the building. Half of the people go down to the downstairs. We go upstairs. So we open the door, walk into she has a 3-bedroom apartment above the bar. So we walk in the door. She flips on the light and she's like, so do you see anything? Now, mind you, I don't know this woman. I had just met her. She's like, so do you see anything? And I look and I see just like it was a regular person, a guy standing right in the living room of her apartment. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, what do you see? And I said, a guy. And she's like, what does he look like? And so I look and I start describing what he looks like, right? And at that moment, he looks at me and he like has this look on his face like he realizes I can actually see him. And the next thing I know, he comes running at me full force. And the next thing I know, he took me over. Now, again, I'm 55 years old. I've had my abilities my whole life. I have never, ever, ever had something like this happen. Next thing I know, I'm having a conversation with her and I'm saying, oh, it's me, Nick. I need you to forgive me. I'm so sorry. It wasn't me. It was the building. And I'm saying all this stuff, right? And she's looking at me. And mind you, she doesn't know. She only met me for like a couple hours and then the car ride, for a couple hours. That's it. So she looks and all of a sudden, like her eyes well up and she looks away. And the next thing I know, I feel my hand like reach out and grab her by her face and twist her face to look at me. And I'm screaming at her, you need to listen to me. You need to forgive me. It's me, Nick. And she just is like, what? And I said, if you don't believe me, now mind you, I can hear what I'm saying, but it is not me saying none of this because I don't know who Nick is. I don't know what's going on. I didn't know anything about the building. So I'm just like, I can hear myself saying it, but it's not me saying anything. And I'm like, if you don't believe me, this will make you know that it's me. And I reached backwards and there was like a table behind us, like a wooden bench table. And I put my hand back and I grabbed something and I bring it back and I put it in her hand. And I'm like, if you don't believe me now, then you won't believe me. And she looks and it's a box. And she looks at this box and she just burst into tears and she took off running out the door and down the stairs. Wow. So I'm like, oh my God, like what do I do? So I go running down behind her. Now, once I got out the doors of the building, the connection dropped. So I knew that he was basically contained inside. But now I get out there and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to do? Because I'm not supposed to.
You need a ride.
And I'm staying with her. We're all staying together. So she went to one bar and I went to the other bar. And so we just ended up drinking the rest of the night. And then we went back and everybody went to sleep. And first thing in the morning, we wake up. Who wakes up first? But me and her. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to have this conversation? And I look and you could see on her face by her, down by her jawline, there was fingerprint marks where I bruised her because I grabbed her so tightly. Now I'm looking like, oh my God, like, is she going to want to fight me? Like, am I going to be stuck in Virginia City? And, she said, can we talk? And I'm like, yeah, I think we should. And I'm like, I really don't know what to say. And she's like, just tell me, did so-and-so tell you anything about my bar? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you're sure? And I'm like, I don't know any. And she's like, okay. And then she's like, well, I will tell you, I did not believe in psychics, not one bit. And she's like, till you've made me a believer. And I was like, why? And she's like, yeah, who you described the other day was my ex-husband who
Oh,
died
wow.
in my apartment. And on top of it, he had said, like, they bought the bar and he was doing renovations. And during the renovations, she said he started to change. And they started having all kinds of activity. They were bringing in all kinds of investigators to try to figure it out. And they were like, people were doing rituals in the basement and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, she said, then was the one thing that really made me know is she's like, do you know what that was in that box? And I'm like, how am I going to know what's in that box? I said, I had never been in there before. And it was some cufflinks. It was the last gift she had given him.
wow.
That's crazy. But Christina, I want to thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us tonight on Chasing Prophecy Radio. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
We're going to have
Thank
you
you.
back. But thanks again for everybody in the comments. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Check us out next week. All you new people out there.
Roku.
Definitely would love to have you back as regulars. Have a great night. And thanks again for watching Chasing Prophecy. Have a great night.
Nighter.
The devil made you do it.
Yeah, the devil.